ora, Ryan. I also have Sharon Barton presenting with me today. Is she here?
Can't see her currently, but do you want to get underway and we can do a loop her in as she pops up?
Yeah, let her in as she comes in. Okay, well, kia ora, morena, everyone. I'm here representing E2. I hear Sharon now. Great. Representing E2 Union, and I have Sharon with me, who is our convener of Te Ruranga at E2. E2 represents over 48,000 workers in New Zealand. We're the largest private sector union. We have workers across aviation, manufacturing, communications, infrastructure, support services, and the public sector. And our members, many of whom are essential workers, stand to be directly affected by the Regulatory Standards Bill, and E2 opposes the bill in its current form. The bill poses significant risks to public well-being, democratic accountability, and te tiriti o Waitangi. It prioritises corporate interests over people and entrenches inequality. The bill reframes regulation through a narrow economic lens, focusing on property rights and efficiency, rather than well-being, community safety, or equity. The inclusion of a fair compensation clause means that if a company claims a regulation limits their profit, they can seek taxpayer compensation. This undermines the ability of governments to act in the public interest. This means that public policies designed to reduce emissions, protect workers, or regulate health and safety could be overridden by the intent of a company. Our concern is that vulnerable workers, Māori, Pacifica, disabled people, women, and low-income earners will be the most affected, because it's these groups who rely on well-crafted regulation to uphold their rights and their well-being. If we look at this bill through the recent legislation, when examining recent legislation introduced with a regulatory standard lens, we must consider the Pay Equity Amendment Act. The ability for groups of women to take a pay equity case is considerably restricted by this amendment. To explain, if a pay equity claim succeeds, the increases are constrained by the employer's ability to pay. This legislation does not address paying women equitable wages or tackling the gender pay gap by challenging disparities between male-dominated and female-dominated industries. Instead, it prioritises corporate profitability over the wages of predominantly female workers. We also have deep concerns about the erosion of democracy within this bill. The bill gives unprecedented power to the Ministry for Regulation, who appoints the Regulatory Standards Board without cabinet oversight. There's no requirement for diverse or Māori representation and no public accountability. The board can review all current and future legislation against the bill's narrow principles, which ignores broader impacts on equity, te tiriti obligations, or human rights, that weakens Parliament's sovereignty and gives undue influence to unelected appointees and private interests. The bill contains no reference to te tiriti, no requirement for Māori engagement, and no assessment of impact on Māori communities. It fails to uphold tino rangatiratanga and would likely prevent targeted equity-focused legislation from being passed in the future. E2 urges this committee to recommend that the bill not proceed in its current form. If regulation is to be improved, it must be transparent, democratic, treaty-based, and serve the public good. Kia ora, I will pass over to Sharon to continue with our submission.
E hara I te mea Tēnā rā koutou ngā raurangatira mā, ngā mihi o tēnei o te rā. I am not a lawyer, I'm not an academic, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm a mokopuna o ngā iwi Waikato, me Raukawa, me Maniapoto. I am domiciled with Papa Tuanuku on my tupuna whenua in the territories of my ancestors in Nehe Nui, or otherwise known as Te Rohe Pōtai, the King Country. And I am the convener of Te Runanga or E2. The Runanga opposes this bill for a number of reasons, which I think other people have adequately expressed. The bill talks about this being a piece of legislation that will establish principles that will help make good law in Aotearoa. And as Georgie and others have mentioned, there's been no reference to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Now, if we are to have good law in this country, I would suggest, and I'm sure most people would agree with this, that good law should be tested against the obligations and responsibilities of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which gives legitimacy to the New Zealand government in Aotearoa. I'd just also like to remind us that prior to Te Tiriti o Waitangi in 1835, many of our tupuna proclaimed our sovereignty in Aotearoa that was recognised by King William, Queen Victoria's father or grandfather, I'm not sure which, but her tupuna anyway. And in that declaration, they said that no entity could enact any law in this country without the express consent of the Confederated Tribes of Chiefs. Tapai. 5 years later, as we all know, the English Crown entered into an agreement with the sovereign nations of Aotearoa. That agreement was to uphold certain promises and obligations that both parties to the agreement had agreed to. And when I think of this bill and many other pieces of legislation that has been introduced into Aotearoa, it just feels, I'm reminded of that saying, you know, a rose by any other name is still a rose. The Regulatory Standards Bill is no different to the Treaty Principles Bill that has that recently failed approval. It is no different to the pay equity legislation that was just recently introduced in May. All of these pieces of legislations serve to undermine the mana and authority of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Other people have spoken about how this legislation serves only the interests of corporations. Well, most of the legislation in this country serves the interests of corporations.
Kuya Shannon, Sharon, we're just coming to the end of time, so I'm just wanting to, if you could maybe move towards your concluding comments.
Wrap it up. Well, I think any test of good legislation in Aotearoa needs to be measured against Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which gives the New Zealand government legitimacy in this country. Tapai. And I strongly recommend that the bill be rejected. What else am I going to say? Oh, there's a lot more I wanted to say. But if this bill should go ahead, I would say that the New Zealand government is bordering on sedition because it is acting against the interests of the sovereign, King Charles, and against the interests of the other parties to the Treaty of Waitangi. And therefore, I suggest that this bill just be abandoned in the interest of the well-being of the peoples of Aotearoa.
Thank you, Sharon. Very clear. And thank you also, Georgie, for your submission on behalf of Etu. Appreciate it.
Okay, I don't think there were any questions or anything following that. Yeah, so what are your thoughts, Lucia?
Yeah, it's you know, it's like all the others. They're just all saying, you know, the same thing, that it's inequity, it's not following, we're not doing what we said we would. And, you know, he's just going to change everything, and the consultation is really big. If you're going to do anything in anyone's country, you know, like especially your own, is to consult.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
I mean,
someone just barging into someone's home and just helping yourself. It's like, you know, you'd go knock on the door first and ask if you can come in, or, you know, like, my goodness.
you got to knock on the door before you come in and take all my stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that's kind of what the Crown did with Te Tiriti. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, if anything, that the document gave the Crown special rights to set up Parliament. Like, I'm just reminded, I got flashbacks of Todd Stevenson asking, what special rights do Māori have? And I'm like, huh? No, we gave you special rights to set up Parliament. Like imagine if the shoe was on the other foot, right? Imagine if England, with their Celtic people, imagine if Māori rocked on up and we colonized them, and then, you know, they're like, oh, okay, let's get a treaty together. We'll be generous and give you, Māori, the space to form a government, so you can write tikanga and stuff that your people will follow, and our people will continue to follow our rules. You know,
Yeah.
that's basically what happened. Like
Yes.
we would look back, and go, "Wow, that was very generous of the English. They didn't have to do that." Well, hey, the same is true for Māori. We could have just gone, "No, we're going to keep fighting you. You know,
Yeah.
we're just going to keep fighting, and we're just going to tell you to get lost." Now, I'm glad that our ancestors didn't go with that option. I'm glad that they signed Te Tiriti, but I'm very sad that the Crown is a dick.
Yeah, yeah. No, we just need to get rid of them and you know, just form our own thing and just gosh, you know, the tangata tiriti, you know, I don't think Seymour realizes the amount of support that we have now. You know, it's not just Māori that he's up against, you know, it's the tangata tiriti and all the minority groups, and everyone is just up in arms. There's such a huge group now that's wide awake. I'm quite thankful actually to him for this bill because it's really woken a lot of people up.
Yeah, he's good at doing. I mean, hey, Seymour defeated Seymour. He inspired the entire he inspired significant pockets of the population to collectivize their positions and form arguments against his bill. Wow, they used their individual autonomy to collectivize against you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, just crazy stuff, far out. But yeah, great submission. I really enjoyed listening to them. Yeah.
It is just so. It's just so funny. I could go on and on and on about this.
It's ludicrous. It's like is this some movie thing? I mean, what the heck? It's just so crazy. It's uneven, you know, like it's.
I mean, the fact that it gives corporations to, like, I don't know, go off and sue the government or sue like iwi if iwi decides to go, well, you know, hey, we actually want to protect the water. We actually don't want pollution in it, and we, you know, maybe, you know, pumping the water out so you can make bottles of Coca-Cola or beer or whatever. You know, maybe that's not such a great thing. Maybe we should put a rahui on that type of activity. No, drag you into court.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, poison the water and the water will poison you. You know, you've got to be so careful what you're doing. You know, and we've got no assets left in the bloody country. You know, everything is gone.
Yeah,
it all
privatized. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh
like,
my goodness.
I just gotta ask people who support this bill, why do you like, if you advocate for equal before the law, why is it that CEOs or people very rich, well, you know, rich and sorted people, I don't know, people like Luxon, why do they get to have more rights than you? Why do they get to have more votes than you in local elections? Because they often own multiple houses across the country. Why do they get to have more votes? Why are they able to lobby for the policies they want? Why are they able to do these things that you can't do?
Yes, yeah. Well, no, it's got to be equal. Remember, you know, like he's saying, it's everybody's got to be equal.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
but it's not equal.
It turns out equal before the law is not a thing when you've got billions of dollars.
Yes.
You're above the law.
Yes, yeah. That's what I've had challenges with some people during the submissions, is that, you know, I said, you know, you know, it says one law for all, and people say, yeah, that's a good thing, you know. And I'm thinking, you've got to read between the lines there. That's not actually cool. You're going to be paying. A corporation gets really annoyed, or, you know, comes into our country and wants some water or whatever. You're going to be paying the taxpayer. Like, if they don't get their own way or they lose money, you're going to be, you know, a peasant.
It reminds me of Animal Farm. You know, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. It's like that, right? But you got rich people, and then you've got workers. All humans are equal, just some are more equal than others because they've got more money than you.
Yes, yeah.
They own more stuff than you. Therefore, they get to have more of a say than you, especially on political matters. And then you've got people bending over backwards saying, oh, they've got more skin in the game. No. They took skin off you. That's called profit. They took that away from you, right? And then they put it in their own cave, you know, and now they're sitting on the treasure like a dragon.
Yes, yeah, and they're charging
took it from you.
Yeah, they're charging you $18.29 for a pound of butter.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. That's it. You got it. Yeah, skin in the game, my ass. They've got money in the bank. They're laughing.
Yeah, they don't care what the price of butter is.
As long as you're buying.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
All right. Time for the next submission.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't know how to. I haven't got a less awkward way of asking that question. I need to just come up with something a bit less
it's so
awkward.
good. It's awesome. No, you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, cheers. Okay, so we've got this 6 p.m. video.